Some of you are not stressed. The answer, if you can't sleep properly or your daytime functioning is not as it should be, your answer should not be you are stressed if you're not. But in order to discern whether you are or not, this is the episode for you in order to make sure that you understand how it actually works from a physiological point of view, and then we can discuss a couple of further details. Thank you for being here. This is What Sleep Wants. My name is Birgit. So the autonomic nervous system is there to help you with involuntary things, breathing, heartbeat, and so on. And it regulates things in the best way possible, and it works in the background. And sometimes you will see the effect when something goes wrong. And that thing that goes wrong is often something that we call stress. So the autonomic nervous system consists of the parasympathetic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, and the enteric nervous system. And these three, the last part, the enteric one, we don't really need to discuss because that's only about digestion and so on. And I would like to only focus on the sympathetic nervous system today to make sure you understand how that works and also the general stress response in order to help you understand the impact that it has on the symptoms. So when a stressor hits you, it means that you are going away from your normal state of being relaxed, doing things, and going about your day, and all of a sudden something happens. And it can be a big decision that you have to make. And for me, it used to be something like going on BBC. The first couple of times were really, first two times, I think, were really daunting because I was, oh my God, what's expected of me and how does it work and so on. But after a while, I was like, okay, I'm going on BBC again. So I've gotten used to it and I'm really happy to do that now. So what happens is that your brain has an area called the amygdala, and through that there is going to be some kind of evaluation of the situation at hand. And then there are two things that happen. There are two separate processes that are being kicked off if something is stressful or out of the norm for you. And one is the sympathetic adrenomedular response, and the other one is the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. Both of them end up with something in the adrenal glands, and the adrenal gland sitting on the kidney has a couple of areas and layers. And so it helps with the secretion of adrenaline and also of cortisol. And I do apologize. And when that happens, so first of all, the adrenal gland has something to say about a very quick reaction to something, and this moment where you just like, oh my God, I can do this. And then you just you get all clammy and your heart starts racing and you can feel flushed and all of that stuff. You probably have been there, and we all do because that's how human life works. And then after a while, the switch, you should have a switch back. I like to think in switches because it's the easiest way to legitimize this concept, and that is really great for you. So stressor going back to normal, and that's fine. At the same time, the cortisol levels will be going up a little bit to energize you and to help you with functioning in that time of need. And then you have a couple of subsequent things that are happening too. And if it's too heavy, you also release some glucose in a way that the body can actually process. And that's another story for another day. So first of all, the stressor per se is always the exception, as we said, and then we have to adapt to a change at some point and then go back to normal. And that just happens day after day after day and in small increments. And then we adjust. So if you move to a neighborhood, that can be the same thing. It's a little bit stressful to be all of a sudden sleeping in a neighborhood. I moved to the sea, and all of a sudden I heard the sea, and I was just like a little bit weird in the first days, but it was a slight stressor, but I get used to it, and that's allostasis. It's adapting to change by amending the way we process that, and that's it. So allostasis is our word here because for some people, the switch off and the adaptation to change can't happen that easily anymore. And that's where you actually have an issue. So I have to change this. My mic boom is arriving at some point, but oh God. So for some of you, you will feel like you can't really get to that point anymore. I used to have insomnia, and I felt quite like a cobra all the time and got really moody and stuff like that. So symptoms to look out for are the following. If it's on and off and you're still in a state where you are switching back to your normal status, it's this very quick rush of adrenaline, the clammy state, the heart rate is going up, you're sweating a little bit, and then things cool down, but you still have a little bit of cortisol floating through your system. And the concept of half-life, I've mentioned that the other day with respect to melatonin, but the same applies here for medication and also hormones. When you have hormones that are circulating, they have to be broken down and excreted at some point because they're not supposed to be there forever. And it means that any half-life that is being communicated to you means that in that time, 50% of any substance or hormones is going to be broken down and then excreted. And mostly liver, enzyme, kidney. So in that order to make sure that everything is leaving the body promptly. For adrenaline, it's a couple of minutes, the half-life, and for cortisol, it's 60 to 90 minutes, so it's going to be a little bit longer. And that's also why cortisol is something longer lasting, and we don't like having that, because if you have watched episode 1 and 2, you will know that the curve of cortisol per day is usually higher in the morning, around 9 to 10 o'clock, and then it's slowly degrading, and then relaxing, and then taking up during the night at some point just to lead you to your peak. And when you wake up, you should be just up and going. So the disruptions are therefore not great, but you will have the switch point, and you will be okay, and you will just break down the cortisol too, and at some point that's okay. So it explains also why you have a harder time falling asleep and then maybe sleeping through the night, because your balance of cortisol is not where it should be. So then we did touch on allostasis before, the change, adapting to change, and sometimes that doesn't happen anymore, and that's when you get into a constant state of anxiety. Your body has to adapt to a constant state, being in constant alert, and your blood pressure is rising, and there are a couple of other things that are happening that I don't want to go too deep into. But the sympathetic adrenomedular axis will give you the heart racing, the sweating, and the feeling coiled like a cobra thing, and then cortisol will give you anxiety, a slight touch of insomnia maybe, and then also slightly elevated levels of stress in that moment. But that's just the way it goes. And also you will feel more fatigued because it's a little bit stressful to go through that. And then you don't want to be in a constant activation state. You need to switch off. And if that's not something that's happening, then you will already notice that your blood pressure is rising, and you don't want to go there. So I'm just checking my notes if I'm missing something for you here. So what I would like to just bring to your attention is if you don't feel like you're stressed because you manage the exceptions in your life quite well, and you do know that there sometimes is a slight curve in your day, but you're fine, you have the right to ask for another physician to talk to, or find somebody who is more adept with respect to sleep. And the sleep issues can also be showing next to other things that happen during the night. So you might be waking up in the first place because of movements or breathing or something else. And we haven't really addressed up until now that stressors can be several things. So stresses can be psychological or mental things that go through our minds, but also some physiological things that we're going through. So stopping to breathe for people with obstructive sleep apnea or central sleep apnea, or then we have glucose issues and so on. So there are a couple of stressors that the body deals with, and that's when a couple of mechanisms kick in, and you always can ask for another physician. There are guidelines that actually assist physicians with guidance, and they are instructed to help you find somebody else if you feel that you're not properly being addressed. with all of that said, I really thank you for being here. And also, this is not medical advice. Please remember to not make any changes based on this content, only introduce something new or change anything with respect to your health, treatments, medication, devices, or whatever, after having spoken to your physician instead of relying on me, because this is not medical advice. I do thank you for being here. Let me just check what I have next on my list for you. So next up, we are going to be discussing, what is my brainstorm lists? We are going to be discussing daytime functioning. So how you can recognize this, if maybe your daytime functioning is not directly related to sleep, and what other factors can play into that. I'm looking forward to that episode and to see you then. I do thank you for being here and have a great day. Thank you.